Hey guys, welcome to week 6 of Algebra 1 SOL Prep. Today we're going to be studying multi-step inequalities. Please refer to the notes that you received to watch together with this video and follow along in the examples. This first example, they're asking us to solve this inequality. The calculator can help us do this. You have received notes that give you the steps on how to do this, and we're going to be following this piece of notes. They're first telling us to press y equals in our calculator. So you go to y equals, you press y equals, and then they are telling us to type the entire inequality into y1 equals. So that's the whole problem that they've given you, including the inequality symbol. So you start typing, and when you get to the inequality symbol, the instructions tell you to press second, then math, then select your symbol. So here's the second button, and here is the math button. And you're going to select the symbol that matches what they give you in the problem. In this case, it's a less than, that would be number 5. And then you keep typing the rest of the inequality. Once you've done that, you hit graph, and you're going to watch how your plot starts, and here it's starting right here. It keeps going to the right. If you compare that to what your notes show you, if the graph starts at some point and then keeps going to the right, that means you're going to be writing a solution that starts with x is greater than. So we can go ahead and start writing that in our notes, x is greater than. Now we need to figure out what number goes here. To do that, we move on to part 2 of solving your inequality. Is very similar to what you did when you were solving equations. You're going to press y equals and type everything to the left side of the inequality into y1. So that means that we're going to be typing this part into y1, and then we're going to be typing this part into y2. So you go back to your calculator and you press y equals, clear whatever's there, and type in what you're supposed to type. The first half of the inequality on y1 and the right side, the second half of the inequality on y2. After that, they're asking you to press graph. So we're going to do that, and the solution is going to be where those two lines intersect. You may or may not see that intersection point. It doesn't matter. You're going to still press second, trace, 5, enter, enter, enter. So let's do that. Second, trace, the fifth one down, the intersection, and then enter, enter, enter. The number you're going to be focusing on is the solution that shows up here for the x. It says x is equal to 2. That is the value that goes right here. So your solution is x is greater than 2. To graph this solution, we're going to refer to this part of your notes to show us how to graph. If it's an inequality without an underline, this x is greater than 2 looks like this first option. So you're going to place an open circle over the number of your solution. In this case, our solution was a 2, so wherever the 2 is, that's where you're going to place your open circle. And it says x is greater than. This inequality, imagine that it's an arrow showing you the location, the direction in which you're going to draw your own arrow. So that would be the solution graphed. Let's try this other problem. We're going to follow the same steps using our calculator to determine whether our graph is going to be x less than or x greater than. So we're going to go to y equals in our calculator, and we're going to type in the entire inequality. So you press y equals and you start typing. Using the same variable button here, even though the inequality shows with an n, you can still use the x variable button that's here in your calculator to enter the inequality symbol. Remember to press second math. That's where the math symbols are. Pick the one that matches the problem that you have. In this case, it's the fourth option down, and then you type the rest of the problem. Once you have the entire inequality, you're going to press graph. And when you see this problem, you're going to see that the graph doesn't really show where the line breaks, ends or beginning. So you can't really tell if it's going to be x less than or x greater than. When that happens, you're going to press window and you're going to increase the x max. I want to stretch this graph over to the right. So the values, the maximum x values that show, I want them to be bigger. So I'm going to press window and I'm going to make this 25. Make sure it's big enough. And you're going to press graph again. Notice that it stretched it out to the right. And so now it's far enough to the right that I can see that break. So the graph shows pointing to the left because to the right there's no more graph. So it goes to the left. So that would be x is less than. That matches this here. So we know now that our inequality solution is going to start with x is less than. Now we need to figure out the number that goes here. To do that, we are going to do the next step here, part 2. Part 2, you go back to your calculator, go back to y equals, you clear what you have there because we are going to do a new step. We are going to take the left-hand side of the inequality and we're going to put it in y1, and then you're going to take the right-hand side of the inequality and you're going to put that in y2. So there's the first half, left side, and there's the right-hand side of the inequality. The solution is going to be the intersection of these two lines. To find that intersection, we're going to go to the blue menu calc. So we press second trace, and it's the fifth one down, the intersection. And you press enter, enter, enter. Remember, you may not see the intersection point. You still follow the same steps. And the solution shows there x is equal to 18, so the number that goes here is an 18. Now we need to graph that solution, and we're going to be using this information here. X is less than 18. Oops, I forgot to write the less than or equal to right here. It has to match the symbol that's given in your original problem. If it has an underline in the original problem, your solution will have that as well. So x is less than or equal to, that looks like this option here. So we're going to be placing a filled in circle at wherever 18 is. You have a filled in circle. And just imagine that the inequality symbol is an arrow. And so this inequality symbol is the tip of the arrow. It will be showing you the direction in which you need to put your arrow in your solution graph right here. So that will be your solution here. In this problem, they're asking us to solve an inequality, but the inequality is given to us in words. So we are going to refer to the key words that are in your notes that represent the inequality symbols. It says 3 times a number plus 4 is no more than. These are the keywords no more than, and if you look at your notes, it's right here, is no more than, represents this inequality symbol. So I know that I'm going to have this inequality symbol. Everything that I see before the inequality symbol words here, so this part 3 times the number plus 4, that should be what goes in this space before the inequality symbol. To translate that, this is the number 3. The word times represents multiply. A number is something we don't know, so that could be called the letter X. This word just represents the addition symbol and the number 4. So what we have just written there is 3x plus 4 is no more than, symbol here in green, the number 22. To solve this inequality, we can follow the same steps that we're using to solve all the other ones. The first part is to figure out whether we are going to have x is less than or x is greater than. To do that, we go to our calculator again, go to y equals, enter your entire inequality. This one is pretty simple, 3x plus 4. second math to find your inequality symbols, match it up to the one you have written down. That would be option 6. And then you enter the 22. You're going to hit graph and you're going to see if the line extends infinitely to the left, which in this case it does. To the right is cut off, so the arrow would be pointing to the left. That means it's less than. If you compare to what we have here, x is less than. So our solution, we know, is going to look like x is less than or equal to some number here. We are now going to figure out this number. That's part 2. To do that, we go back to our calculator, go to y equals. You can clear whatever you have there because now we are going to enter the left-hand side of the inequality in y1 and the right-hand side, which in this case is just one single number, in y2. So that would look like this, 3x plus 4. And below that, just the number 22. You're going to hit graph, and you may not see both graphs. You may not see the intersections, but once it's done graphing, you can do second calc the intersection 5, enter, enter, enter. And it's telling you that the intersection should be at x is 6. So the right-hand side of your solution statement should be x is less than or equal to 6. You might see in an SOL a problem where you have to figure out which equation represents the words statement. I'm sorry, which inequality represents the word statements that's given to you in the problem. Again, refer to these words, keywords that represent each of the inequality symbols. And here they're asking you to remember that the biggest number in the word problem goes at the end of the inequality. So Paul has already $12 and he can earn $7 per hour. Every time you put per, you're going to be multiplying times something. Which inequality represents how many hours he must work to earn at least 50. So this is the biggest number. This number should be at the end of the inequality, which is what we see in all of our options. You may or may not see that in the SOL, but at least here we see it in all of them. Now we need to figure out which one of these we have. Well, Paul already has $12, so that's just a single number 12. And he can be earning $7 per hour. So to that, he's going to be adding $7 times what? Well, times something we don't know, times x. So this is what we're going to be looking for on the left-hand side of the inequality. It may be in a different order. It might have the 7x first and then the 12. They are the same thing. So which one of these has this option? The x should be with the 7, so we can scratch this option out and this option out. And now we've narrowed it down to B and D. The only thing we need to figure out now is whether it's inequality greater than or inequality less than. For that, we refer to our key words. He says he must work to earn at least. At least means that number or more. At least. So the inequality should be a greater than, which means that this is not it. Our option would be option B. In this next problem, they ask you to find what was done incorrectly here. So we can check from step 1 to step 2. This plus 1 seems to have been canceled out. They must have subtracted 1 from this side to cancel it out. And what you do on one side, you do on the other. And this 19 minus 1 produces this 18, so that's fine. Now looking at from step 2 to step 3, the parentheses are no longer there in step 3, so what they must have done is multiply the 3 times the 4 to get the 12, and then multiply the 3 times the negative 2x to get the negative 6x. So that's correct. Then from step 3 to step 4, they got rid of this 12 on the left-hand side. They must have subtracted 12 on this side to cancel it out. But what they do on one side, they do on the other. And 18 minus 12 is a 6. So that's also correct. So now let's look at the last steps here from 4 to 5. They got rid of this negative 6. It's no longer there in the bottom step, so they must have divided by negative 6 to cancel it out. Divide by negative 6. And 6 divided by negative 6 is a negative 1, but I think they forgot that when you divide by a negative, the inequality symbol should flip. It should have been this way. So their mistake is here between steps 4 and steps 5. And that information is shown in your notes. Remember, when dividing both sides of an inequality by a negative, you flip the inequality symbol. In this next problem, which graph best represents this inequality? You don't really have to graph everything and remember how to graph equations, because there's just key information you need to know. First of all, if the inequality has an underline, we know it's going to be a solid line. All of these show up solid, so that doesn't help us narrow it down. The next thing we check for is the y-intercept, where the line crosses the y-axis. It should be at positive 2. So this occurs at positive 2, same here, and same here. In some cases, that's going to help you narrow it down. In this case, it doesn't. The next thing we look at is the slope. The slope is negative. So that means that the right-hand side of the line should point down. So here, the right-hand side points down. But this one, the right-hand side points up. So I can immediately discard that option. That's not one of the options. In this case, the right-hand side points down. That's fine. Here, the right-hand side points up. So again, that's not one of my options. So which one of these is it? Shaded downwards or shaded upwards? That is where the information on your notes here helps you figure that out. If it says y is less than or equal to, that means shade down. So this is shaded down, that's good. This is shaded up, so that cannot be an option. Your answer should be option A. Here's another example that you might see. Mia can spend at most $90, and here's a key word that you are going to make note of. At most. Remember that at most right here means less than or equal to. So I'm going to write this down here because I already know this is an important part of that inequality. And I keep reading the problem. $1.50 each for the seed packs, $15 per bag for the planting soil. Which graph represents how many seed packs and soil bags she can buy? You don't even need to know how to set this up into an equation. All the information that you need is right here. If it says less than or equal to, remember the direction of the shading for that. That should be shading down, right here, shading down with a solid line. So anything that shades up can immediately be disqualified because we're not shading up, we are shading below the line. And if the inequality has an underline, it should not be dashed, it should be solid. And that's it. Thank you for watching.